Okay, so welcome to the first of a four-part, four-point training series. I'm Brianne Durham, the director of Washington Main Street, and we're very happy to be offering these 30-minute interviews focused on best practices for the Main Street four-point approach. We've been hearing from a lot of you this year that your goal for 2021 is actually to get back to basics, the things that make the Main Street movement one that has stood the test of time: dedicated volunteers, well-oiled organizations, and a focus on our guiding framework. Main Street approach is truly asset-based community development. Framework helps you leverage the things that make your community unique. It's entrepreneurs, it's local history, the built environment, and an engaged public to foster sustainable local economies and connected communities. Today, we are diving into economic vitality, and I'm grateful to Linda Hagland, Executive Director of the Wenatchee Downtown Association, and Laura Merrill, Executive Services Director for the City of Wenatchee, for joining me. The majority of this training will be hearing from them about what makes their economic vitality team in Wenatchee so strong. But first, a very brief primer. So economic vitality is really economic development within the context of an evolving built environment within that existing economy. So we can kind of break EV down into three main areas. You're really supporting small businesses in your community, building strong relationships with the people who've already staked a claim in your downtown by opening businesses or owning properties there. And you're providing targeted assistance to them. That's where that relationship piece comes in. You know them very well, and you know what you can do to enhance their investment. It's also about promoting opportunities, and this is one of the things I think Wenatchee is so very strong in. You're working with property owners and partners to promote strategic use of space and development. And then it's also about working with your partners to assemble resources for entrepreneurs and startups, creating that really business-friendly environment in your city, and catalyzing investment. And so this is where I get to turn it over to these wonderful folks and just ask you first, when you think about economic vitality in Wenatchee, what does it mean to your community, and why is it such an important part of your Main Street work?
Well, I've got to go back when you say my Main Street work. I've got to go back 10 years ago when I got this job in economic development. Unlike Laura, it was a part of her work experience. It was not a part of mine. I knew nothing about economic development. I knew probably in the job I was learning, it was what I knew the least about, but what this organization needed to retool and refocus on. So for our organization, I believe economic development over the last 10 years and how we've developed is really critical to how downtown looks and feels. Big empty spaces, spaces that are vacant for a long time and you don't know why. Also, for me, I recognize the thousands of unused square footage in downtown, typically in upstairs old buildings. And I didn't know the first thing about getting there. I just knew we needed to. So for our organization, why it was important to me, I think for the growth of our downtown and for the health of our downtown, having a handle on economic development in our downtown and who the players are was critical to my learning.
Laura, what's your perspective there from the city of Wenatchee when you think about WDA's economic vitality work?
Sure. So, I think economic development can be done in so many different ways, right? And it's everything from infrastructure to events to whatever you can really think about when it comes to investing in your community and redeveloping. But with the Downtown Association, I think that the reason that the city works so well is with them is that we're aligned with focusing on our core. We know how important local businesses are. We are a smaller community. And so the local business how well they're doing really is kind of the pulse of how well Wenatchee is doing. So making sure that they are supported and that we are supporting our downtown is a huge piece of economic development from the city's perspective.
Well, kudos to the city for recognizing what an important role the downtown does have in the overall economy. So tell us a little bit about the strengths of your Economic Vitality Committee. What is it that makes it, Linda, as you say, it is your strongest committee. What makes it so?
Well, I think who's in the room. So having Laura's brain speaking for the city, sometimes more than often that she likes, we put her on the spot. But understanding the direction the city's going, the challenges the city's having in whatever growth of whatever the city's doing, having her in the room to speak on here's the climate, here's what we may need help for. Also, the mayor visits a couple of times a year, and the mayor will ask our economic committee, what can the city do to help you better? And then once we get to hammer him a little bit, then he'll say, okay, here's what I need from you. And because I have key property owners in that committee and other players like our regional port authority, other people doing economic development, it is a voice he wants and he feels he needs to hear. And I think that's been one of our strengths in engaging the community, because we give them a job to do or what they say is important. And we bring people in the room that do economic development work. So downtown business owners and property owners, and then people outside the core that come into our economic feel like they know what's going on and they have a voice.
So tell us a little bit more about who those committee members are. What types of folks from Wenatchee are involved in your committee?
Well, I think when people ask me about economic, how did that become my strongest committee? It was my weakest job experience of the 4 points, right? And so the first thing I needed to know is to build relationships with the property owners. I knew that was my missing link. So how can I be of value to the property owners? So having anywhere from 3 to 4 property owners in different, sometimes areas of the community there to talk about how we make their space viable or how we connect better with them, what their challenges are in leasing spaces. That's always critical. Again, I mentioned the city. We like the Regional Port Authority to come because they are a gateway when people are looking to open business in this community and in the region, actually. They also played a really key part last year in grants and help through COVID. So they felt like that when they came to the meeting, they could understand what was available out there, how they helped their tenants. And then some business owners just wanting a say in parking and developing what's missing in the downtown landscape as far as types of business. So we have people really all across different business in the community. I have an insurance agent that loves to come and just talk about, because he cares about this community. And he's a nice voice in the room that says, well, let me tell you from this perspective what's happening. So Brianne, it is business people in general. And then also, again, that connection to our city officials and regional port officials that really know what's going on.
Laura, do you have anything to add to that, especially in terms of like being one of those members of the committee and the value of kind of the folks who have assembled? Sounds like they're really doing a lot of sort of big picture visioning for the city.
Yeah, I wrote down two-way street, and Linda absolutely explained that perfectly, because it is a two-way street. It is very useful for us to be able to hear what the downtown business owners are saying, or especially during the COVID times when we had some ideas of what we could do, how we could help, how we could manage the resources that we were getting from the various funds. We looked to that committee to hear what those perspectives could be. So that really helped us make a lot of decisions. And vice versa. When there's places where there's needs downtown, our staff is there, myself included, and the mayor, to hear those and try to figure out how we can support some of those needs. So yeah, it's a very involved committee. I would say that we're very blessed here that a lot of people really love and care for Wenatchee, and so they really are more about the bigger picture. You know, and you especially maybe saw that during COVID, but it wasn't, well, what can you do for me? It's what can we do to help our other businesses? And so for us from the city perspective, it's really helpful to just gain priorities and next steps and figure out how we can best support you know, the downtown and other businesses.
Yeah, that's huge. And, you know, we know that a lot of Main Street work is both big picture vision and getting things done in the moment, addressing current needs. So when you think about the EV committee, what's it one example or one story that highlights kind of the success of how this group works together?
Possibilities tour. You know, those who've been in Main Street a little while get tired of hearing me talk about the possibilities tour, but to be able to tour vacant spaces and newly renovated spaces in a non-threatening environment. By that, I mean, nobody's going, oh, what are you thinking about bringing? You know, or what do you want to do? It's a kick the tires tour. But one value I think that's an easy win, Brianne, when you ask me in talking about this, what are the easy wins you can do is that my connection, one of my initial connections with the property owners was for the vacant spaces, being able to put a sign in their window that really directs them to this space is not empty, it's full of possibilities, and drive them to our website or our phone number. The second conversation was, I wish this was. And so what happens is that people who are interested in a space want to talk maybe sometimes before going directly to the building owner. So this comes in a little bit more of a soft hit to us to go, okay, tell me about this space, or who do I talk to, or what are some of the nuances of this space? This was probably single-handedly, and to this day remains one of the key parts of, I think, what we've been able to do here. I got a call just the end of last week. This was in a building. Tell me about this space. You know, do you know? And we don't talk about pricing. We don't talk about leases. We don't talk about anything other than Main Street is really, really good at connecting. And I think for EV, how do you connect? And I think that's the coolest thing of probably a success, is that connecting people together to get something done has been critical. And then my second one would be the amazing contract for services, could I say, Laura, that we have with the city for a historic credit consultant. So Spencer, so renovation wants to be done. It was in the city's budget, but with everything going on a couple of years ago, it wasn't in the city's necessarily bandwidth to get this consultant. So we have a consultant basically on standby. So Laura can send an interested person to them. I can send an interested building property owner going, I'm going to do renovation in this space. What are the thresholds for special valuations and tax credits? None of that is in this brain. It's all in Spencer's brain. So for Laura and I to have that connection to someone that can help them, Laura, I think that's been a big win, don't you?
Absolutely. You know, it's someone that it knows the process, can walk potential interested developers through the process, someone that's worked with our staff. And so our staff trusts them and knows that, okay, if Spencer's online, they're going to get this application in right, and things are going to be done correctly. And so it gives us some streamlining there. And then of course, it's a huge resource for the property owners. It's a pretty, it can be an intimidating process to look at those historic credits and the paperwork and the documentation and what does the math look like and the tax valuations, the whole bit. So having that resource to make it just that much easier to be interested in something like that, and really preserving a special building, I think is really important, especially in the downtown. You want to preserve a lot of those really cool older buildings.
Yeah, and there are so many resources out there already to property owners, but I think what you've done through this partnership is you really looked at what's kind of the missing link. Why are they not taking advantage of the resources that are in the toolkit, so to speak? And you're helping them bridge that gap. And it feels like kind of a lofty thing, right? To like
Mhm.
have this outside consultant who's working directly with your property owners, and that the property owners are excited and on board with that. But I just want to emphasize, if I could draw this line, you didn't start there. You know, you started with something like, can I put a sign in your building? And started kind of building that trust up with them, you know, a decade ago, Linda.
You know, and the other thing I think that because the city trusts us with those resources, and it's a reimbursement contract, right? So it really is work that benefits both of us, that's easy lift. But I think the thing I heard is, we know that a building maybe is coming up for sale. I can send a potential buyer to Spencer, and Spencer can say, here's what you're going to have to spend to do this. Here's the tax credit available if you do this. It has made a difference in people buying a building or not. And, you know, I didn't have to do anything but click a button that says, here, meet Spencer, Spencer, go for it. And I mean, it's really, for Laura, I think for both of us, it takes that something off our plate.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think it also just provides that reassurance to the developer that they're in good hands, and that someone's walking them through the process. And I know it helps our community development department, because those can be extensive renovations and extensive changes to a building. And so anything that we can get in front of versus trying to fix later, I know from the city's perspective, we're very supportive of that.
So this sort of feels like a good kind of segue to ask you about the type of guidance that you might give to a Main Street program that is either at the starting point, they're just starting their economic vitality committee for the first time, or, as we know is the case for a lot of programs right now, maybe they're rebooting it. You know, what would you say to them about where they should start? You know, who they should get involved? What should they prioritize at the beginning?
So what are your missing links? Is your missing link the property owners? Are they out of area property owners? Are they local property owners? Are building, and it is incremental. It's not, you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time. I started out with a target of taking building by building and who owns it. And a little bit, it's easy to find that information out. You go to the business that's leasing, and who's your owner, right? And begin to say, I don't want anything from you. I'm going to try to help you. And I think the one word of advice is, that's an easy win. And then if you do not have a relationship with your city or economic development drivers, who are they in your community? Identifying who's doing economic development work and how can you be better connected to them. Our regional port authority was a shocking surprise to me a while back. I didn't understand, because that was not in my wheelhouse, that they really are an economic development driver. It's within their mission to be so. I was just never connected with them. They give me a grant every year to facilitate the possibilities tour. Or the other thing we're about to do is we understand the huge challenge that our businesses have for employing people. And I can use some of that money, and I'm going to work on, with other partners, the chamber, we're going to do a job fair in June. And that's economic development, but that is money I would not have had without my relationship with the Port Authority.
And so much of this work just does come back to relationships. You know, you've spent the time building relationships with the property owners and that's paying off. You know, you've spent the time building relationships with the business owners, and that's a huge value to your organization, but also to the city and to the partners who are part of your economic vitality team. So it does feel like there's a lot of just sort of like laying the groundwork and relationship building that leads to the ability for a program to be that connector, which is
You know,
what you kind of
Brianne,
boiled it down to.
yeah, and another challenge, and I think Laura can attest to this, is looking at if you were to start a business, what's your pathway to get a business license, to get an inspection for that business, what is allowed? And so that Laura she helps guide if there's a sign code, right? Just navigating a sign code or private use of public space in your downtown. Those are all big, feels like a big bite to take, but finding the path that a potential entrepreneur to start a business, working with the city, who do they talk to? And understanding that it doesn't have to be something as sophisticated as a toolkit, but being able to offer not only that business, but the property owner resources. For instance, how long it took to get a business license changed. The only reason I knew that is my relationship with the city.
Yeah, Laura, I wonder if you could, I'm going to put you on the spot a bit with this, but we just really do know, I think all Main Streeters know how important the relationship with the city is. And so from your perspective, you know, what would you say to other cities and their Main Street partners that are trying to just find that great fit that's so symbiotic like you had with WDA?
You know, it really is about relationships and making it a two-way street. I've worked in other organizations before where it can be a contentious relationship because it's about just give, give, give. And we all know that municipalities, we're on restricted budgets and our budgets have strings attached to them. And, you know, there's all sorts of red tape, but there's ways to make it work. But we need that perspective from the downtown. And so when you have a good connection with someone that's as trusted as we have here with the WDA and with Linda, then it's easy to be able to do that. But again, without having that back and forth, it has to be that relationship. And so I think from trying to build that, it's how can we work together? How can we partner with stuff? How can we get creative? I think is a big one. I know, you know, when it comes to codes and stuff, we try to get creative as possible and try to problem solve as much as possible. So yeah, just make it a two-way street, really come to the table with a how can we work together attitude.
Definitely appreciate that. Linda, I want to kind of give you final remarks here as I thank you both for being part of this.
So a few years ago, based on an idea that came from Olympia, then Main Street manager, she had dinner annually with the city council and the mayor. And we try to continue that. Obviously, we couldn't do it with COVID. But when my board sits down with the mayor, we provide a wish list. What are we worried about? What are ways we can work together? So I just want to say thank you that I have a city that's open to get my wish list. We know we aren't going to get everything on it, but you don't know if you don't ask. So grab little wins and find an ear and have a wish list. And in a perfect world, what would it be? And then how to find a yes and find a partner that helps you get there.
Good advice from both of you on this point. Thank you so much for your time today, and we invite all of the attendees to share what will eventually be given out as a recording to this with their committees too, so that we can kind of continue building this really strong ethic of best practices around economic vitality and the other 4 points. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.